That's entrepreneurship 101. Learn to pour yourself out.
Woo! Welcome back into episode number 2 of Numbers and Nonsense. As always, I'm Joe Nolan, and with me is
Aaron Holtzman, repping my alma mater Rutgers, my firm Crane Holtzman CPA, but most importantly, repping my fans, you guys out there, all three of you. I'm gonna recuse myself now. Thank you.
Hey, maybe we can, if you don't forget to like and subscribe, just maybe we can get that number up to 6 by the end of this one, Aaron.
Yeah, we're gonna get a Patreon set up too, and try to monetize this as fast as possible. So,
Casper mattress, ground news, any other of those YouTube scams that want to reach out, let us know. We are for sale. That's the most important thing.
Exactly. That's entrepreneurship 101. Learn to pour yourself out. So, Joe, just to segue into what we really want to talk about today, is yourself. Last episode 1, we got to talk about my little villain arc, if you will. And so I figured I repay the favor in kind to you and let everyone listening to us kind of learn about your journey and, the other half of Numbers and Nonsense.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating, but yeah, absolutely happy to share. I've had a really unique journey, I think, in the finance space that's given me a lot of access to see things from a few different angles. So after college, after Rutgers, got my econ degree. I went to Merrill Lynch, and I was actually working Series 7, Series 66, got my life, health, and variable licenses. But I was sitting on their defined benefits desk. So looking at stock options, RSUs, your pensions, if you remember those, 401ks. And it was crazy because, it was an inbound call center environment. And one time I remember I literally had back-to-back calls where one call was the former governor of a state that was cashing in some stock for a company that he sat on the board of. And then hung up. The next call was someone calling in, trying to cash in their Walmart 401k because they were homeless and they just needed their money. And I had to tell them, sorry, like their plan says you have to wait till 30 days post severance. So,
ain't that America, land of the free?
It's tough, man, right? Like see it. There's winners and there's losers in the system. And there's different people that have different access to the same services. But it was a great overview, great way to sort of see a lot of different things and how they work and interact with each other.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say that is very spot on, the fact that you had those 2 calls back to back and just showing, how different everyone's paths and journeys can be in this fun adventure of life. But Joe, after, being at that hot seat at Merrill, where did you venture onwards afterwards?
I had my first foray into banking after that, working at PNC Bank. I realized, I'd been using them as my bank my entire life. Might as well give them a shot as an employer. So I was working as a licensed banker, doing consumer lending, primarily residential lending, your HELOC loans, deposit accounts. But the goal was really to get people to move money out of their savings accounts and into PNC investments, trying to create that recurring revenue, getting away from, the low fees that they were getting from deposits. That wasn't super fun, but it was directly retail facing. Saturdays, but it taught me that banking was dying and that no one goes to the branches anymore except for people who have nothing better to do and people that are dropping off cash from their business.
And I mean, not for nothing, you cut your teeth doing something that, a lot of people in your industry didn't do, the retail side of the business. So you see that world. And I mean, that's kind of insightful, I would say.
Yeah, it was great. You talk with real people and you see how their banking and their services affect them and just try to understand how services might work for them, but it's not what they need. But it really was great. It was also the first time I got sales trained. Being at a big bank, they were able to spring for a big training, which was great. But I ended up moving from there over to a non-traded REIT, which was actually really cool. I went from consumer facing into B2B. I could not have lucked into a better time. I think it was like 2014 or 2015. I went over there to this company at the time called Resource Real Estate. We were doing value add multifamily across the Sun Belt.
Oh my gosh.
For like 2014 and 2016. I was there for the end of our raise in REIT 2, which basically meant I was calling up financial advisors across the Southeast, Ameriprise, LPL, RIAs, and I was begging them to give me their clients' money, just like every other wholesaler that was calling them, asking them to invest their clients' money. So, that was crazy. You're calling in, you're paratrooping in from Philadelphia into, some guy's office in Louisiana. You're trying to explain your product, your fee structure. You got to both know the full CRE world and the markets. Then you also have to know the envelope, the financial structure, how the REIT works, and especially for those guys, how they're going to get paid.
Yeah. And I actually forgot about that part in your work history. So it's kind of fun to hear you say that and how it's really benefited you and I with our own real estate and syndicating some of our deals, because you've done presentations like that before.
Absolutely. I mean, that was between Finest Address. Finest Address, I felt most comfortable with it because of Resource Real Estate and my time institutional doing fundraising through the independent broker-dealer channel, but also because of the duplex that I bought in 2014 and house hacked, which is, I guess, what the kids are calling it these days. I lived on the first floor, rented out the second floor, and, but having that direct experience and the institutional exposure really made for a dangerous combination, I think.
When we decided to do our foray into real estate. No, for sure. And Joe, how long were you with this REIT for?
I was with them for about 2.5 years. I closed out REIT 2. We ended up raising $636 million of equity. Actually, hold on.
Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. Joe's got some weird shiny objects.
The trophy they gave us. Congratulations. You brought in over $500 million to have this nice piece of crystal.
It's funny you're showing that, because that just reminds me of at one of my previous jobs, one time for like a holiday present that they gave to all the staff were glass stars, very similar to that, with nothing engraved on it. It was just a blanket glass star. We all joked that it looked like they just went to Macy's and did some dumpster diving. But it also backfired on that employer, because when people would quit, and a number of people quit over the next year and a half, they would leave their star with a person that was remaining. So by the time I left, I gave my star to one of my colleagues, and they had like 7 stars at their desk.
Wow.
As a reminder of the fallen soldiers that have moved on.
Come back with your star on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what, though, it was a great time there. I learned a ton. I got sales trained twice down there. Had big people come in. We rented out the Borgata in Atlantic City and had some of the craziest stories. Maybe if we end up with a Patreon someday, I'll tell some of those off the record. But, it ended up, it's really interesting doing those non-traded REITs, because everyone waits until the last month or two to pile their money in, even though it's a 24-month raise. And it's because, why are they going to invest if they're going to get the same access on the last day versus the first day? So you have a close, then you just have a long wait. And in that wait, regulatory environment changed, and people started doing diversified income funds, where they were actually buying REITs or non-traded REITs and creating like a daily traded fund, as opposed to give you access, as opposed to having to buy these like private REITs. So, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
And I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of that went over my head, Joe. I think we'll have to have a whole episode dedicated to REIT structures and everything you just talked about.
I'd love to. Yeah, REITs are really, really fascinating. It's what we do. I think is a better version of it because it's smaller and we're picking
Yeah.
assets individually through finest address now. But having that full institutional knowledge, seeing the acquisitions process, seeing the marketing to the market for what we were doing, it was a really great experience.
Yeah, for sure.
And now everything until this point I've been doing was Series 7 and 66. But when things sort of died down in between REIT 2 and REIT 3, I actually got recruited over to a company here in Philadelphia called Liberty SBF, which was not a financial firm. It was a lender, a non-bank lender doing something I'd never heard of before called SBA 504 loans. Um, they, they actually offered me the job twice. The first time I said, no, I don't want to give up my licenses. And the second time they raised the offer and I said, okay, well, let's do this. So for the first time, I wasn't at a broker dealer, and it was a hell of an experience. I call that my master's in SBA. It was about 3 years where I went from literally never knowing what an SBA loan was to within 18 months, I think I was 27 years old, and I had a team of 8 vice presidents that were reporting up to me as a player coach. Went
That's
through
awesome.
a bunch of cycles of building teams up and them falling apart.
That's not
And,
awesome.
no, but it's a pretty common story in finance. A lot of these places are built around someone that's able to fundraise, and that becomes a cult of personality, or it becomes super bureaucratic and it's very entrenched fiefdoms inside of big banks or institutions like that.
Yeah. And we even talked about the other day about those kind of 2-year bankers
Oh
where,
yeah,
yeah, they hop around. They'll go from, one particular bank to another, build up a portfolio, get nice commission checks from closing deals and loans, and then hop off to the next one and
yeah.
leave those behind to deal with any fallout from any deals not coming through, any loans going to
Exactly.
forbearance.
There's so many different ways that people sort of access the system for their own benefit. When I was at the 504 shop, I learned a ton. But it was a really restricted program. 504 only works for owner-occupied commercial real estate. So I think I did something like I originated $7 billion of loans, and we closed like 50 million in a year.
Oh my
It's
God. That is a
it,
very big gap. Yeah.
oh my God, yeah. There's a lot of kissing frogs out there when it comes to pull through rates. But from there, I actually went to another shop called Pursuit, formerly known as the 504 Company, where I worked as a vice president, business development officer for a CDC, or a certified development company. It's essentially a nonprofit bank that does lending on behalf of the SBA. So when I was at Liberty, that is the first half of a 504 loan. And then the CDC does the second half of the 504 loan on behalf of the SBA. And the borrower puts in the third piece. Your eyes are glazing over, Aaron. I
No,
can
no,
see.
no. I I'm rubbing my eyes because I'm stroking my beard as well. I just started my eyes. This is actually very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great structure. So I got to see how they work on from both sides. It's a really great, 50% is the bank, 40% is the
Yeah.
CDC, and 10% is the owner. So, 90% leverage on commercial real estate. Had a lot of experience diving into uh, tax returns, projections, star reports, business plans. And I really fell in love with SBA between those two places because you just see so much more of the country. You have people from all over the place sending you these files to analyze and see what's really working, what really isn't. And compared to everything else I had done before, which was mostly moving numbers around to make rich people richer, I could actually see the tangible benefit of every single deal. And even if it's smaller, I'm not going to do $500 million of SBA loans in any given year, most likely. But, that's each one is going to have such a bigger outsized impact on that family, on that
And the
borrower, and on that
community.
community. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um,
No,
so
that's
I,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's a
And
great
I
time.
mean, one of the other things that you had experience with too is looking at businesses and deals and seeing, hey, this is bankable, this isn't. And, being
Yeah.
able to kind of, as you said, avoid kissing frogs, or I guess you do kiss the frog and find out it's not a prince.
Well, you got to put in a lot of reps, there's, I talk with you and your clients sometimes about the unknown unknowns of SBA lending. And a lot of times that just, you have to go through the process enough times to
Yep.
have seen what trips people up so you can steer them away.
And
And
if there's
you
one
got to
thing
get those reps somewhere.
for sure, and from experience, having worked with you personally for my business and with some of my clients, like, being able to work with someone that can get the deal done is just so invaluable, because you've seen every tripping point and you know how to say, okay, this is the no, and this is how we can make it a yes and get to the next step and ultimately get to closing. Because as you said, unless someone's actually gotten a loan from the SBA, or frankly, until someone actually gets a loan for anything, for most people, it's buying a house. And when you
Right.
buy a house, I think a lot of people would agree there's a special place in hell for mortgage underwriters. But until you actually get that loan, there's nothing to that you have leverage wise. So being able to actually get to closing is second to none. That is the most important thing that you do, Joe, is get
Mm-hmm.
people, deals that are credit worthy, but get people across the finish line.
Time kills all deals, doesn't matter what industry you're in. So speed and certainty of execution are huge. And just, I'll tell you, part of my journey has also been building a brokerage. I separated from the CDC after after the PPP loans, which was a
Oh
whole different
man. Oh
nightmare.
my God. Yeah.
Uh, I think I literally worked, it was like 21 days straight, including Saturdays and Sundays, underwriting those loans, because all of our member banks didn't have the capacity because they're
Yeah.
small community
Yep.
banks and they didn't want to lose all their clients. So our president at the CDC turned our entire company into an outsourced underwriting department for all of the community banks in New York State. And I think I did something like 600 of them myself, and
That's
it
awesome.
just completely burned out, and was pretty done because no one was doing business at that point. Um,
Yeah.
and I got an opportunity from someone I used to call on to go join a company and build an SBA brokerage from the ground up as a fintech enabled side at a company called Janover that was recently acquired. So after PPP, after COVID, jumped into, I guess, tech entrepreneurship inside of a larger company, like employee one, revenue zero, no systems in place. Just they sold me on, here's a platform where we're getting leads. Can you turn this into deals? And I've told you a lot of sales jobs I've had so far, but no one's ever said, can you make money off infinite leads before? So I said, sure, I can figure this shit out. How hard can it be to build a tech company inside something else? But I mean, you were there through that
Uh,
process. That's how I
yeah.
actually
I
helped
was
you
Yep, that's the
get the
first time
loan.
we got to work together, like
Exactly.
professionally. You helped, like, through that company. That's how myself and my business partner actually acquired our firm and started our practice. We used you, got put in touch with an SBA lender through you as a broker, and we're able to close on a firm out in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm. And that was a great experience. I had almost complete autonomy, was able to build things up using my B2B and C experience and the lessons I'd learned so far in life. Like, just treat everyone with respect. It doesn't matter your words, they'll always hear it. Give people the time, and, they will give you the time. But
Yep.
um, it was very, very successful. The last year I was there, we signed up $175 million of SBA 7A and SBA 504 loans into a pipeline. We had 60 million already closed, but in that period of time, we went public. I got to
Yep.
sign or ring the bell up
I
in the
remember that.
NASDAQ.
Yeah.
The Friday closing bell. And then 6 months later, my department was downsized and we were, taken out back. Mostly because the market doesn't care about transactional revenue. It cares a lot more about recurring revenue.
Yep.
So the idea of a SBA brokerage just doesn't fit too well in with the idea of a publicly accountable company. And from there, I ended up where I'm at now, Venturis, which is, a direct SBA 7A lender, nationwide ability, and it sort of completes my my infinity gauntlet of roles. I worked at a 504 lender, worked at a CDC, worked at a brokerage, and now I work at a SBA 7A shop. And it's a great place to sit. I always tell people, if I can't do the deal for you, I probably know someone that can because of my experience. And it gives me a lot of insight to how things really work, not just at one shop, but there was times when I was dealing with 20 different lenders on 20 different deals on the same day. And you really get a good sense of how if a deal is eligible, there's a place for it. But I can also tell you that the reputation that SBA gets for being hard to work with sometimes is justified, but mostly by the lenders. Some people have great terms, but are just impossible to work with because of bureaucracy or personality.
Yeah. Or it's got to be cookie cutter. You got to fit in, the square peg into the square hole. Doesn't matter. And frankly, the SBA program exists for the non-square pegs. Like hospitality or certain other, business groups that banks don't want to lend to because they don't have a lot of underlying assets or are just deemed, too risky, not traditional, or entrepreneurs looking to start, either start their own business or buy an existing business. Again, it's a big risk, especially for people that have never had the knowledge and experience of running a company. It's one thing to run a P&L, at a division at a large organization. It's another thing to know for a fact that if you don't have money in the bank, you're not going to be paying, your employees that week. It's a totally different mindset.
It is. It absolutely is. And that's a really hard leap for people to make. But then also on the other side, I run into people that were like, but look, this deal, it works. It cash flows if you had this back and this X, Y, and Z requirements are met. But, at the end of the day, a loan is still being made by a bank, and it's still a transaction that's being agreed to by two people or in this case, a lot of people. And there's things that go along with that really can't be, completely automated, can't be taken away. And no matter how much you want to fit that square peg in, the real life is sloppy. So just, being able to help communicate effectively is so key. Like I've learned that my job is really a translator. I gotta translate business into banker into bureaucrat, and then everything back and forth so people actually understand what the hell we're trying to ask them to do.
And as you just kind of said, it all boils down to the human element. Not just the lending side, but business valuation, purchase price. You could say, pursuant to, these various approaches, the business is worth this. No, the business is worth what you can sell it for. In the meantime, it doesn't matter. So same thing with lending. You could say, it's lendable pursuant to these things. Well, yes, but those things are not the ones making a decision. Michael over in accounting is making that decision. But no, Joe, that's a phenomenal journey that you've been on. And I didn't even know that you had the 504 experience, actually. I guess I'm just a bad friend. Or whenever you talked to me about 504 loans before I was actually interested in this stuff, I just blew you off, yes, you did to death. But, again, with what we're doing, in this podcast, what you and I do with the real estate and what we do when we're able to have that privilege of tag teaming clients together that are looking for, SBA financing. I love it. I love that you're this much, this well-rounded. And it just makes me that much happier that we get to work together. I already trusted you implicitly. And I'm going to stop gushing at this point for our viewers. We should rename the show to something romantic. Two brothers from Rutgers or something.
That's it. It's just two brothers.
So Joe, we're coming up to close to the end of our episode, and I think we should just maybe shimmy in this last piece about a pretty interesting article that you shared with me the other day. And if you want to just pull it up on your screen real quick, we can look at that prompt and give our thoughts.
Absolutely. So welcome to our Reddit minute here. uh, I'm someone who spends time just browsing the internet sometimes. So I came across this entrepreneur thread that was pretty interesting. And this guy said, if you've ever said it's faster if I do it myself, you got to read this. And he was basically making the point that a lot of people turn themselves into the bottleneck of their company. If you can't document it once, then delegate it forever. You got to use a task manager and not your memory. You got to set default decisions. You got to hire for outcomes, not hours. And you got to build for the team you don't have yet. I talked through my journey a little bit, and it's just resonated so much with me that I sent it to you. And I just wanted to get your opinions. Like, you as an entrepreneur out there in the field, does this match up? Like, do you see people becoming these choke points?
It for sure is and does. Again, I'm going through that journey right now and trying to remove myself from, and my partner Mike, from being bottlenecks and getting, servicing out to our clients and all that kind of fun stuff. And knock on wood, every year we're getting better and better, building out our team. But all that comes from the goal of mentoring people, building people up. It's not just investing money in salary, it's investing time and training and teaching people at your business how you think so they can represent the business the way you would want to represent it. And it's in the same breath. I also have a number of other CPAs I talk to on a routine basis where they do it all themselves. And it's two totally different paths. One, they're both entrepreneurial, but one path that I'm taking is I want to grow something and I want to scale. To scale, you have to be purposeful, like we were just saying. But also, some of the other CPAs have their book of business. They work, 20 hours a week. They pick and choose their clients, and they're making almost as much money as I am, if not more in some cases. And it really just boils down to what type of lifestyle do you want? There's nothing wrong with doing it all yourself, as long as you're happy about it and you're not getting burnt out. I think that's the biggest thing to avoid for a lot of people is what can be delegated to avoid burnout, especially as a business owner.
And you hit the nail on the head. It's about being intentional. I think where people hit frustration is when they're trying their hardest to grow and they're doing it all themselves and they don't understand why everyone else isn't trying as hard as they are. That's a tough trap to get stuck into. But the other side is, like you said, if you can intentionally decide, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not trying to scale. I am trying to focus on maximizing the dollars per hour I spend because I have other things I want to do that I value more. It is a really great side effect of being an entrepreneur is if you're intentional about where you're trying to get to, you can get there, as opposed to a lot of people that just have this undefined future they're trying to get to.
And I mean, it's also, I think, what's the quote? Comparison is the theft of happiness. Everyone's on their own journey. All the TikTok videos that are out there going, oh, I have a 7-figure, business that I don't work in and just earns me money. Two things. Firstly, they're full of shit. And secondly, if they did get there, it was either by luck or it took them a long time. And they're just trying to sell you a book. You're actually feeding their lifestyle by buying some BS ebook. But I mean, that's it. Everyone is growing at their own pace. It's never too late to do things. It's never too late to pivot your career, your lifestyle, or anything. I mean, I always like the KFC story. Colonel Sanders was like, what was he, like 40, 50, 60? I mean,
he was in his 60s when he started KFC.
I think he was older than the average life expectancy at that point. So if the Colonel can do it, it's never too late to start.
Well said.
Yeah.
And, I'll tell you something that I really liked about this article or this thought as well, is something that I've found, and maybe you've seen it too. I like to think when you're building teams, when you're trying to give people delegated tasks, I don't like to give people exact processes. I like to give people problems. I sort of think about it as like you create like a square or something that they have complete autonomy inside of. and they're going to solve problems that you didn't even know were there, and they're going to find solutions you never would have thought of, but they'll grow in the shape that you need it to for the overall bigger picture. And I find that analogy to me is always stuck. Like, you got to create the framework for people to grow into, but then you got to let them be themselves to fully reach their potential inside of that structure.
Absolutely. And I mean, a big part of mentorship is consistent and timely feedback. Constant criticism, not in a negative way, not in, hey, you suck, but hey, this is a different way you could have approached that. That's a different way to say what you're trying to say. And again, that's something that I've found to be very lacking in the accounting industry. Unfortunately, I've had some very good mentors, but that's unfortunately the outlier and not the norm. But Joe, we're also coming up to, I would say, a good point to pretty much let our viewers go on their merry way. But I know we have an ask this week, if you want to put that out there for next week or another future episode.
Yes, absolutely. Aaron, thank you for being the change you want to see in the world. Next week, we'd love to do some kind of deal analysis. You can see, hopefully, that Aaron and I have a really broad experience to be able to look at things. So if you're browsing the internet and you find your favorite biz, buy, sell that you want us to take a look at and give you our first thoughts, or if you're willing to be a little bit more open and share a situation that you want our thoughts on, join us in our Discord, leave a comment, or reach out to us on DMs, and we'd love to talk with you and just try to be a little bit of a resource for our audience as well, and really try to make this as useful for you guys as we can.
Yeah. And again, if we're able to look at something and teach you guys how to look at deals or look at potential investments, that's a great takeaway. And to just build off of what Joe said as well, please don't use actual names or actual deals. We want to keep things confidential. So
yeah, I think that's a HIPAA violation.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it at this point. This is Aaron Holtzman signing off.
And this is Joe Nolan reminding you to keep the nonsense in your numbers.